Welcome to this video. The Flying Scotsman here, and this is the first video I'm actually recording post-operatively, as it were. It's been nearly 2 weeks since I had my operation. The healing is going quite nicely. So some of you will be wondering, well, actually I've recently been asked, what have I had done? Well, in order to tell you what I've had done, we're going to need some science. Well, firstly, last summer, actually it was last September, so it was the end of last summer, I was diagnosed as having hyperparathyroidism. Hyperparathyroidism. And while that does sound like a cult, what it actually is well, basically it's where you end up with tumours growing on the parathyroid glands. Sounds quite scary, not sure if I should be scared or not, but apparently I shouldn't be. That can cause the parathyroid glands to incorrectly detect that there's not enough calcium. So, well, it can, that's what the parathyroid glands do. They control calcium levels in one's blood. So, because of that, what happens is, if there's any kind of tumours on these glands, what will happen is they will send out too much parathyroid hormone, which will basically make the body empty the calcium out of the bones and into the bloodstream. That can lead to too high of a calcium level. You can end up with brittle bones, because the calcium's been taken out of them. Calcium is known to build up good, strong bones. Take the calcium away from the bones, they become more brittle, or at best, achy bones. It can also play havoc with your digestive system. I forget what the condition's called, but it can have effects there. You can end up with stomach pains, what have you. Weaken muscles. It can also cause confusion because, and I can't remember. Oh yeah, it can obviously causes you to become dehydrated. So you end up going to the bathroom a lot more, and then you have to obviously drink a lot more because you become dehydrated. You can become quite confused, and if left untreated long enough, it can mess about with the electrical impulses in the heart and cause cardiac arrhythmia, aortic arrhythmia. I can't even mind. It's some kind of arrhythmia. A medical person I am not, sadly, which is a shame because when I was a kid, I was very much into medicine as much as I was into my computers, and you'd not think it now. I wanted to be a surgeon as a kid, but was told when I was about coming up to 11 years old that actually that wouldn't be a possibility because of my eyesight, which is sensible actually. It was. I took that on board, I think, pretty well, because by the time I was turning 11, I was kind of thinking more, believe it, along the lines of DJing. But then again, that's me digressing, which I do a lot. So basically, I was having problems with some of these symptoms. Certainly the dehydration was an issue for me, and I was getting a fair amount of aches and pains. So my calcium level, it was very high, In fact, I was actually admitted into hospital in March, just the week before Easter, because it was so high. So that was fun. That was actually really, really, really good fun. He said sarcastically. So, I mean, I've known about the hyperparathyroidism for, basically since last September. I had an initial appointment with, I think it was an endocrine nurse in December, and I think they went to basically get samples from me. Then I spoke to an endocrinologist in January, February time. It was January actually, now that I think about it, and he'd obviously had a look at the samples that had been taken, and he had basically said that they were going to operate, because up until then the operation had only been seen as, a maybe, but I kind of had a feeling that that's the way that they were going to go. So in February I had a couple of scans scheduled. First one was a basic ultrasound scan, the same kind of scan that a doctor will give to a pregnant woman to check on the state of her unborn fetus. For those who don't know, an ultrasound scan, basically it uses sonar, a lot like a dolphin or a submarine system might, and then it'll send out sound waves, and depending on where the sound waves bounce back, from solid objects like organs or what have you, then that is where that's how it creates a picture. So I had an ultrasound scan, they didn't find anything. Then I had a radio scan, whatever it was. I wasn't ever told what name of the scan, CT scan, CAT scan. It wasn't an MRI, although I did spend a few moments in a cylinder. But I did go for a radio scan. Basically it was a bed where they had two boards. I had to lie down on this bed, and I had two boards, and what they did is they started one on top, one below, and then it just went like that. They basically kind of turned around so that both boards were able to get a 360 degree view, as far as I know. Again, they didn't find anything at that point, but they were still going with the hyperparathyroidism diagnosis, even though they'd not found anything, which did have me questioning them, but they said that the symptoms did point to that. So obviously that all went off to get checked out. I had another endocrine appointment on the 10th of April, and while originally it had been hinted that the operation probably wouldn't take place until kind of the autumn of this year, my stay in hospital actually put me up the list, thankfully, because my calcium had gotten to such a dangerous level that they did have to admit me. And while I was in the hospital, what they did the first time round was they put a wee bag, they filled me full of 3 litres of saline solution to rehydrate my system. And then there was another, I forget the name of the chemical, but they put that in me as well because my calcium levels were refusing to budge and go down. So I was in hospital for 4 days with that. Not really the best time because I didn't feel like I was getting the right information from doctors. Treatment was happening without me being told that it was going to happen. I wasn't even, this is how bad it was. I wasn't even made aware, although I should have been. I should have known this, but I wasn't not made aware that if you're put on a drip to be rehydrated, if you're put on a saline drip, when you need to go to the bathroom, that's not just going to be a niggling urge. You're not just going to be like, oh, could use the bathroom. When you need to go to the bathroom and you're on a saline drip, you will go now. I don't care what you're doing. You will stop what you're doing and you will go to the bathroom. Otherwise, you'll go to the bathroom where you are. So, yeah. So anyone thinking about wanting to go on a saline drip, which is nobody because you don't really kind of get to choose that sort of stuff. Anyone who's away to go on a saline drip, that's what's going to happen. Yeah, so kind of be wary of that. So after that stay in hospital, I had another endocrine appointment in April, and again, this was not with the surgeon, it was with, I can't mind who it was with, but you know, they said that I'm going to go for the surgery and talk about, you know, what they'd found, and they had to take more samples for me because I'm quite young actually for going, you know, through this, you know, with the swollen parathyroid glands. I had to, you know, obviously they wanted to check to see if it was anything else because, you know, I'm quite young for that kind of a condition. So they checked all that out and, you know, I was fine. I was fine in other areas, so it literally just was a hyperparathyroidism. So in May, I got to meet the surgeon for the first time, and he basically outlined some of the procedure. I mean, at first I'd not found anything, so he suggested another form of scan that would expose me to quite a bit of radiation that I was going to have to go through if you know, I chose that they were going to go looking for the parathyroid glands in that way. I could have chosen that scan. Luckily, though, they didn't like to recommend that to people my age, you know, because of the you know, radiation risks. So, and I just had enough of waiting anyway because, you know, obviously with my anxiety, I have severe anxiety, you know, and this had been on the go since last September. It was already May. You know, I'd had an admission into hospital. I was having to go for blood every week or two. You know, and I was just wanting to get this done, sorted, over. And he said that, you know, there was going to be, you know, more stuff. That, you know, there was going to be, like, you know, risks to the surgery, so I could have ended up with a hoarse voice because they could irreparably damage the nerves around the voice box because it's in kind of a similar area to the parathyroid glands. So that was something to think about, but you know, I just decided, look, I don't want this radioactive scan, so I just want to go for surgery. And he said, right, okay, well, that will probably be June or July. Probably looking at closer to July, which at this again, it felt like an agonisingly long wait. And it was, even though that's quite quick, given, you know, the state that the NHS is currently in. You know, we had the NHS completely swamped at the beginning of the year. I mean, it was nowhere near as bad here as it was in England with, you know, the flu and what have you, but it was still pretty bad. So, you know, the hospital had to kind of work through their backlog, you know, caused by that. But, you know, that said, I do appreciate the NHS and everything they do because they are good. I mean, it's good that I live in a country where healthcare is considered essential, you know, kind of a right rather than a luxury, something to be likened to buying a new car. Because I know people who have actually likened healthcare to buying a new car. You know, I remember speaking to someone that I knew in South Carolina. I said, I remember being taught in school that Americans have got to be able to demonstrate the ability to pay before, you know, they'll even potentially send out an ambulance. And the person replied to me with, well, of course. You wouldn't go into you wouldn't go into a car showroom and buy a new car if you weren't going to be able to pay for it, would you? And I was just gobsmacked. It's like, hang on a minute, healthcare should be a right, at least in my opinion. Is everyone has a right to healthcare. I mean, it's just a no-brainer, especially in a rich nation like the United States of America. I'm sure they could cut some money from overinflated budgets elsewhere. Military. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So, yeah, the US likes to spend more people killing people than actually curing people. And that's me off the air on YouTube. Or treating people for a lifetime. Anyway, so, as I was saying, so a couple of weeks after the appointment with the surgeon, I had my pre-op. And that seemed to go okay. The nurse was very understanding about my anxieties. I had my support with me, and she was really good at, kind of helping me to get across, just how much information I need, what's, about what's going to happen and when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. I was also told, it was basically just also telling them, just telling them about, need for information and my anxiety and needing for it to happen as quickly as possible, because mentally I was not well. Over the past few months I've just not been well, because the anxiety in me, even though it was a small procedure, it was very anxiety inducing, and I was scared that they were going to not do the operation, or they were going to continually cancel and move it and cancel and move it and cancel and move it, and just yeah. So the pre-op itself went fine, but then they had to do a check on my voice box. So they did that. They put a camera up my nose and down my throat. I've got a bad gag reflex. And it was horrible. It was really, really horrible. First of all, they actually had the letter sent us to the wrong department. The letter I got from the hospital sent me to the wrong department. So I was waiting and was late. And at the same time missing my appointment because, the hospital had me at the wrong waiting room. And the staff there were even telling me I was at the correct waiting room. Wasn't until, about 50 minutes after my appointment was due that the staff actually decided to go and, kind of look into it. And it was like, oh, by the way, sorry, you were supposed to wait here and we've been waiting on you. So I was not sedated for this nasal endoscopy at all. It was just like, oh, this isn't going to hurt, it's just going to feel uncomfortable. Bollocks. I say this in the politest way possible. That hurt like a motherfucker. In fact, that hurt like a motherfucking bitch fucking another motherfucker bitch, fascist, call me Nazi pig over there on the couch. On the couch over there. Sorry to butcher when I'm saying from Elmo 3. Yeah. It really was that bad, and they were like, I was screaming out in pain and retching because I thought I was going to throw up because of the gagging reflex. Just horrible. It really was. And they were like, oh, it's going to be over, and we need to have a look at your voice box. And then eventually they took it out, and oh my goodness, I had a headache for the rest of the day. By the time I, was done, I was about ready for a mutiny. Because, I'd already started the pre-op day on the back foot, ready to fight almost, because I was that stressed out with it. And then that happened, and so it didn't augur well for me that day. That day was pretty bad. But I decided to go to come here to the office, and my colleagues were very understanding and helpful, and got me a cup of tea immediately as I came in through the door. You know, they kind of saw the state of me, and it was like, oh, come on, get sat down, hey, a cup of tea. So that's exactly what I did. Just had a cup of tea, explained everything, and yeah. So throughout June, I believe it was just me getting bloods done. I can't remember now if I had any more real kind of hospital visits. I don't believe I did. The next one was I got my update through actually on June the 7th, and I thought I'd read it as, oh, your operation's on the 11th of June. So obviously I was there, like, you know, quite excited that it had come about so quickly, and it was like 7th of June. It was only going to be a few days, and then, you know, get everything sorted out. It's brilliant. And I thought, this is too good to be true. I'm just going to read it again, just to be sure, because I'd sent a message to my support at that time, and I'm glad I did, because 11th of June was not the date of the surgery. It was the 11th of July. So yeah, a month away. So that was a bit of a fall, you know, after thinking it was the 11th of June. Luckily, I was able to go to penumbra respite actually for that week when it did finally arrive. You know, I had really been struggling mentally. They prescribed me diazepam actually, because that's how bad I was feeling. Like, you know, they were like, oh, try this. Didn't touch anything. But I just kept myself busy coming in here, doing computer stuff and what have you. Comfort buying at home, unfortunately. I've done too much of that this year. You know, just because I've been that mentally not there, you know, because of all the anxiety and what have you. But the surgery finally came around. I was able to go into respite. So, you know, on the day of the surgery, I got picked up by my support, 6:45. Got to the hospital about 7:30, I met in time, and got, it was very hot, and for a while I was in a waiting room with no windows, and there was a fire alarm panel, and they were doing fire drill testing. So not only did we get to hear the alarm going off every few minutes, we also got to hear this box beeping away like a lunatic. And, you know, I just kind of found that a bit difficult to deal with. Luckily, though, they were very accommodating, actually. Day of surgery admissions. So I got moved into a quieter, more airy, more windowed waiting room. You know, out of the contravention of UN Human Rights Charter torture chamber waiting room. And eventually got to see the surgeon, Dr. Surgeon. I'll not say anyone's name, identity, and GDPR. So yeah, Mr. Dr. Surgeon. He was an English guy who talked a bit like Patrick Stewart, though, so if you can imagine, something like that. And just imagining Dr. Picard doing the blooming surgery, Jean-Luc Picard. Okay, anyway, so on the day of the surgery, you know, I saw the surgeon, who immediately told me that I was going to be in overnight. Okay, all very well and good. I kind of packed for overnight, but you could have told me, because I was told on the pre-op day that there was only a possibility that I may be staying in overnight. You know, as far as I was concerned, you know, I was up at stupid o'clock in the morning and down at the hospital by equally stupid o'clock in the morning, because the surgery was going to be done and I was going to get out of there by the afternoon or evening, whatever. But no, they wanted to check up on me, you know, keep me in overnight and check up on me, which is, to be honest, fair enough. I can understand that. You know, safety precautions first, because I mean, I know down in England they'll throw you out the hospital before you've really even like recovered or finished with your surgery or what have you. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did throw people out of English hospitals mid-surgery. I'd be like, oh yeah, well, you close up yourself, you wear a plaster, it'll kind of go down, and put a polo neck sweater on or something. So I was, kind of taken aback by that. A couple of things I'd forgotten, one of which being an extension cord, which, I kind of felt was a good idea, so that, I could actually have my mobile phone close by, even if I was charging it, because I was using it. In fact, I used it as a modem the entire time, and I was in the hospital. And I actually had to use its data at Penumbra as well, because one of the routers doesn't seem to work with any of my laptops in the dining room, and that's where I like to talk in TeamSpeak, because it's out of the way of everyone trying to go to sleep. So it was kind of lucky that I got a bigger data plan actually from Vodafone, which I have, because I basically ran through all what data I would have had on my old plan, which is basically what I did last time I was in the hospital. Fantastic! Yay! So, obviously, went through the admissions thing in hospital, height, weight, blood pressure, blood test, that kind of stuff. And then I waited with my support in the waiting room. And they were quite good. I was like, look, can I have a table for my laptop? I just want to, kind of play about with my laptop while I wait, kind of distract myself. Again, they had no problems with that. They actually brought me a trolley, a hospital trolley kind of table thing, the sort that you have over the bed in the hospital. And my support and I would basically sit and watch some Trailer Park Boys together. I knew I was in need of a good laugh, so I watched a couple of my favourite episodes of the Trailer Park Boys, which, if you wanted to know, two of my favourites, two which I like to quote often with Jack Stavros and Conky and High Definition Piss Jugs. And we're about halfway through the High Definition Piss Jugs episode when it was my time to go down. So, they fitted me out with compression socks, because you've got to wear those for your surgery. They're very, very kind of dashing, except you don't get the flashes with them. And I'm pretty certain that they would have kittens. I'm pretty certain it would be the doctors having a stroke if you even thought about sliding a skiing do down the side of one of the socks going into theatre. But wait a minute, we're supposed to be the scalpel people, not you the scalpel person. You're the person that we're gonna cut up. So, got dressed into a gown and the rather fetching socks and slippers, and then had me put on my dressing gown, and then just, went down in the lift to the, operating room floor. The anaesthetist, again, was a very friendly, helpful person. He was an Indian guy, and got chatting to him about Indian carry-out. Well, not Indian carry-out, actually, Indian food in general, because I lived in an Asian household for a wee while when I was very young, so I know what good Asian food is, and not the stuff that's kind of made up for British people's sensibilities. My support was allowed to come into the theatre and hold my hand while I know, I'm pathetic. Just kind of wanted someone there. And it wasn't really that anything hurt, because the cannula going in, obviously stings a wee bit, but once it's in, it's fine. It's not too bad. Just kind of restricts what you can do with your right hand, but only a wee bit. I was still finding that I'm able to type or use a computer mouse. So my support turned up in scrubs and Crocs, and she basically waited with me until the anaesthetic took effect. First thing I'm talking about Indian food with the anaesthetist, and the next thing I know, they're calling my name, and I've got this oxygen mask on, and the surgery's done. Then they took me through to recovery, and of course, because it was a long day, I had two support on, one at the start and one at the end, and it was while I was in theatre that the support changed. Now, I was ready for this, so it wasn't like, it wasn't going to be like, a shock that, my support had grown her hair out and into a bun and shrunk in height or anything. So, I mean, that was a thing that happened. Got my support with them. The afternoon support turned up with me while I was waiting in the recovery room, and I've got to tell you, I mean, something that they don't necessarily tell you about anaesthetic is, it's going to affect people differently, obviously, but I certainly felt headachy when I came out of the anaesthetic, and I felt like I had a sore throat as well coming out of the anaesthetic. Coming out of theatre, because obviously they put a tube down your throat so your airways don't close up. So all kinds of derpy things can happen with anaesthetic. So obviously you've got the tube down your throat, for ventilation and what have you. So I had that sorted. When I came to, first thing I wanted was a cup of tea, because obviously, your starvation times, they seem to be a lot better these days. Well, obviously it'd be depending on the surgery you're having. I mean, if you're having GI surgery, I can imagine you'd need to starve yourself for a much longer period, but because I was just having parathyroid surgery rather, I only needed to starve myself from 2:30 in the morning of food, and from 6 o'clock in the morning drink. I remember having ran out of time, so I don't think I got a cup of tea that morning. I think I just had some orange cordial at 6:30 that morning. Before 6:30. So yeah. So I was gagging for a cup of tea when I came out of the operating theatre, but they had to wait to get me on the ward to do that, until I'd woken up a bit, and but I was able to get a glass of water, and that was gladly received. But eventually I did get that. But I mean, obviously, because of the headache and the sore throat, I had a sore throat, not necessarily the sore neck. I mean, that wasn't the biggest of my problems. I mean, I knew that was going to be sore, but I just didn't want to feel drunk anymore, because I literally did feel hungover. So I was, mind if I have a paracetamol, and they gave me Automorph. Morphine taken orally. Didn't really need that. I felt quite sleepy time after that, but then it wore off and I felt quite awake, which is quite amazing. But it didn't wear off for a few hours, but I thought I was going to go to sleep or something, but eventually I did get my cup of tea and got some biscuits, and then I had some supper and I felt quite a bit better, had lots of tea. I did stay in overnight. The support left me at the back of 6 at night. So, settled down and watched some Computer Chronicles with yet another cup of tea. And that was just so me. Just Computer Chronicles, cup of tea, life was good. So overnight, I did speak a bit to my chums online, Billy and LML3. My voice was a wee bit sore, and it was a wee bit hoarse. So I spoke for a wee bit and then I went off to my bed. Took a while to get to sleep. So I watched some more computer-based stuff on my tablet. Watched a thing about Gary Kildall, and I finally was able to turn it off and go to my bed. And got woken up at 2 o'clock at night, which was nice, for blood pressure and what have you. So I've got to do that post-surgically. So I had my vitals done in the night, got a wee flag. I hope I didn't shout abuse at the poor nursey trying to get my vitals. And then got woken up at 6:30 for bloods. So they did my bloods, and those came back fine, you know, not too low or high or what have you on calcium, because that can happen after a parathyroid operation. Your calcium can actually then go too low. They actually removed 2 glands, the top left and the bottom right. So they did find what they were looking for in there. But I was back home, you know, the day after my surgery. And back home, I mean, go back to Penumbra. And then I met a friend. We had a meal in the Brigadon pub, which is quite close to here and quite close to Penumbra. And then we had a wee walk along the riverbank by the Brig of Balgownie. And yeah, that was it. And I think I just went to my bed because I was feeling quite tired and dizzy and probably might have overdone it that day. But I stayed at Penumbra until I recovered. Well, I stayed at Penumbra for the rest of that week. Got back last Monday at the time of recording. But I'd been put on dihydrocodeine post-surgically, and that was making me feel quite dizzy and tingly and sick and what have you. So, I mean, I came into the office last Tuesday thinking that I could manage it, but I was feeling dizzy and sick and nauseous. So I was like, no, not doing the office at all this week. And I decided to take myself off of the dihydrocodeine. Don't do that. Whatever you do, if you're coming off of something like that, you're probably best to speak to the doctor. I tried and didn't get a response back. But now that I'm off of that shit, I feel so much better. So, you know, I mean, I'm getting some semblances that the surgery, you know, has actually had an effect. You know, there's a couple of things that tell me that the surgery has went not too badly. Anyway, so that's the surgery stuff. I've babbled on about for long enough now. The incision, how's the incision doing? Not too. How's the incision doing? It's not too bad. It's healing quite nicely. You know, it does look like someone's had a go at trying to slit my throat, which is entertaining. But hopefully, you know, that will heal. And I'm actually growing out my beard. Originally I wasn't going to, but I realised I was going to have to shave. I was going to have to kind of, well, I'm not the best with a shaving razor anyway, even a safety one, so shaving near an open wound was never going to be a good idea. But I've just decided, you know what, with the scar and everything, just to kind of grow my beard out a bit, you know, while it kind of heals over properly. So, so that's a thing. And that's basically now why, you know, I look a bit like a hobo. Although, a lot of people have liked the beard so far, so that's good. I'm kind of liking that. So, what's going to happen now? Well, I'm not entirely sure. Just try and get back on track with everything. I've got stuff to do here. Hoping to get Retrofest started pretty soon. So that'll be a thing to work on. And yeah, just chav on with everything, really. My videos should be going a bit more back to normal. I've decided to give up Patreon because I've realised that, you know, if all I've got to offer is, well, you get to see the video a bit earlier and nothing else, literally no other perks, it's not the best. And to be honest, it's, you know, yeah. But I do appreciate everyone who's actually pledged to my channel. You know, you can go ahead and remove those now if you want. I mean, I'm still going to be supporting people that I am supporting on Patreon. But I know, you know, there's a couple of people that I know who have or are giving up Patreon. So that's the thing. And yeah, I'm hoping to make a return to Tuesday night videos at 8 PM. Because that's something that Patreon stopped me from doing, was being able to properly schedule videos using YouTube. So I'll be able to do that again, because I always found that that was quite useful. You know, I could put up a load of videos. I could have found that very useful during my surgery time, because the video would have went up the day before, and I wouldn't have forgotten about it, what with all the anxiety about going into hospital. So yeah, but to conclude all this, you know, I appreciate the fact that, you know, made a good recovery and operation went well, and doctors obviously did the treatment competently. The nurses on the surgery ward were very good, very understanding, especially, you know, with my ASD issues. Very good. You know, and it was a really good experience. I probably would say, however, you know, I would have liked a wee bit more information about side effects and what was going to happen with the dressing. I mean, the dressing, I mean, it was dissolvable stitches, which kind of go in a, you know, heal in a couple of days. The dressing was just literally some surgical tape over it, and that just kind of came away itself. And then last week it was being literally held on by about a centimetre of stickiness still left, so I decided just to pull it away and discard it, because, you know, it healed by then. And it's, yeah, the healing's going well. I see the doctor, well, it was going to be 4 weeks from the date of the surgery, so 2 weeks have gone now. I've not got an appointment letter, so I don't know if that appointment letter is going to be sent 4 weeks from the date of the surgery or whatever. And you know, with all that, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, everything will be fine afterwards. And yeah, I can drink milk now without having to worry that my calcium's going to spike. I can, you know, don't have to go for blood tests all the time, which is good. And yeah, just kind of starting to feel a lot better within myself. So anyway, I've got other videos to make, so I'm going to end this one. Cheerio, bye.